I wasn't supposed to be home. The flight back from Houston had been rerouted because of a tropical storm, serendipity, I thought at the time. I'd landed at noon, 5 hours earlier than Olivia expected, and instead of heading to the office, I turned onto our quiet suburban street with a grin on my face and a bottle of her favorite Cabernet on the passenger seat. The idea was simple: surprise her. A kiss, a laugh, maybe even one of those slow, lazy afternoons we used to lose ourselves in before life got loud and routine. God, I was a fool. It was a late Friday afternoon in early October. The air had that edge of cold that hinted at the approaching winter, but our house stood warm and welcoming in the orange light of the setting sun. I remember how proud I used to feel pulling into that driveway, the one we paved together, her laughter ringing as the concrete splattered on her shoes. I let myself in quietly, expecting to see her curled up on the couch with a book, maybe a coffee half drunk on the table. Instead, the house was too quiet. Not just empty quiet. Suspicious quiet. No music playing. No faint clink of dishes in the kitchen. Not even the hum of the laundry machine. Then I noticed it. A pair of unfamiliar sneakers by the entryway, scuffed, size 11, black Nike trainers. I froze. My breath stuck in my throat like a cough I couldn't release. My first thought wasn't what it should have been. I told myself it could have been a delivery guy, a contractor maybe. Hell, maybe Olivia's brother had dropped by unannounced. But deep down, something darker unfurled. I walked upstairs like a man approaching a guillotine, slow, measured, heart pounding in my ears. Each step felt heavier than the last. Our bedroom door was slightly ajar, the familiar creak of the old wood louder than I remembered. I paused outside it, not because I was afraid of what I'd see, but because some part of me already knew. Then I heard it, her voice. Not words, just a sound. A breathless, almost desperate moan I hadn't heard in months. And then his voice, low, masculine, unmistakably familiar. Ryan. Ryan fucking Palmer. Our next-door neighbor. My friend. The guy I watched Super Bowl with. The one who brought over beers when my dad died and offered to help with the lawn when my back went out last spring. He was in my house. With my wife. Inside her. I pushed the door open. The image hit me like a sledgehammer. Olivia on her hands and knees, tangled in the sheets we bought together last Christmas. Her face turned toward the window, lips parted in pleasure. Ryan behind her, his hands gripping her hips like she belonged to him. Her back arched, her hair a halo of wild curls. She didn't even see me at first. It was Ryan who caught my movement. He froze, like a kid caught stealing, his face turning a shade I'd never seen on a living person. Olivia turned her head and saw me. I will never forget the sound she made. A single gasp, sharp and full of recognition and shame. She pulled the sheet over herself as if modesty mattered now. Ryan stammered something. My name, maybe, or a plea, but I didn't hear it. My world narrowed to the sound of my heartbeat and the hollow, ringing silence that followed her betrayal. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't say a damn thing. I just turned around, walked back down the stairs, and left the house. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the keys as I climbed into the truck. I remember starting the engine and backing out of the driveway like I was in a trance. I drove. Just drove. No direction. No plan. I passed the town limits, then the next town over, then a gas station I didn't recognize. It wasn't until I pulled off near a lake 2 counties north that I stopped. My hands still clenched the steering wheel. I stared out over the black, rippling water, and that's when it hit me. Everything I thought I knew, my marriage, my friendships, the woman I trusted with my life, had been a lie. They didn't just cheat. They did it in my house. In my bed. With the door unlocked, like they didn't even fear being caught. Like I didn't matter. I turned my phone over, and it lit up like a Christmas tree, 7 missed calls from Olivia. A dozen texts. The first few were simple. Mark, where are you? Please come back. We need to talk. Then they turned frantic. I didn't mean for it to happen like that. Please just let me explain. And finally, desperate. Mark, please. I love you. I dropped the phone on the passenger seat like it burned. Love? She said she loved me? No. Whatever that was upstairs, it wasn't love. It was selfishness. It was betrayal. It was a bomb dropped in the center of everything we'd built over 11 years of marriage. And Ryan? He wasn't just some guy. He was my friend. He knew what Olivia meant to me. He'd been in our home. At our dinner table. He'd helped me patch the deck just 2 weeks ago. And all the while, he was waiting to fuck my wife. It was almost poetic. So I sat there in my truck, staring out at the water, the sky darkening around me. The bottle of wine still in the back seat. My hands finally stopped shaking, but the numbness settled in deeper than before. That night, I didn't sleep. I just kept picturing her, her skin, her eyes, her smile, but now warped by betrayal. Twisted, tainted, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw it all again. Her body beneath him. The sun came up, but I didn't notice it until it burned through the condensation on the windshield. My truck was parked beneath a line of trees just off the edge of a lake I hadn't even known existed until last night. I don't remember falling asleep, but I must have drifted off for an hour or two somewhere between rage and emptiness. It wasn't rest. It was collapse. I sat up, stretching my neck with a stiff groan, my spine tight from sleeping half-curled in the front seat. The air was cold and damp, and the silence around me was oppressive. No birds. No people. Just the occasional lap of water against the rocks. I checked my phone. 32 missed messages. Olivia's name glared from the screen. Some of them were just her calling over and over again, back to back. The rest were texts. Some frantic, some begging. A few were full of apologies, so long they read like confessions. I didn't open a single one. I stared at the screen for a long minute, then powered the phone off. Not airplane mode. Off. I needed quiet. I needed space. I needed something Olivia had taken from me the moment she let Ryan touch her. I leaned back in the seat and looked out at the lake. It was beautiful in the early light, silver ripples catching the orange of the sun. But all I could think of was how good it would feel to toss my phone into that still water and never look back. Instead, I tossed it into the glove box and slammed it shut. When I started the engine and eased the truck back onto the road, I had no idea where I was going. But I couldn't go home. Not yet. That house, once filled with warmth, now felt like a corpse, cold, stiff, and filled with ghosts. I ended up at the lumberyard. Yeah, my job. I wasn't even on the schedule for another day, but there I was, walking through the rear lot like I belonged, even though I felt like a man walking in someone else's skin. Mike, my supervisor, looked up from a clipboard when I walked in. Jesus, Mark, thought you were still in Houston. Got back early, I said, voice flat. Everything all right? I gave him a look that must have said everything, because he just nodded slowly and didn't press. By noon, I was buried in the back storage area, breaking down a shipment of cedar planks. There's something cleansing about labor, about putting your body into motion when your mind's a wreck. The sweat, the strain, the ache in your hands, it all gives you just enough distraction to forget how hollow you feel inside. That was when he showed up. Ryan. He walked in through the front like he didn't just gut me the night before. He looked like shit, too. His hair was messy, his eyes bloodshot. He was wearing a flannel I recognized. He wore it the night we fixed his fence together 3 weeks ago. The irony made me nauseous. I caught him out of the corner of my eye before he saw me. I ducked behind a shelving rack and clenched my fists so hard my nails bit into my palm. He walked toward the back, and I knew immediately. He was looking for me. He didn't get far. I stepped out in front of him, eyes locked on his. His breath caught when he saw me. Mark, he said, voice low. Man, Turn around, I said. He didn't move. Turn around and leave before I put you through that drywall. Please, he held up his hands, eyes full of panic. Just hear me out. Please. I didn't mean for it to happen. That phrase. I didn't mean for it to happen. I lunged. Just one step. Just enough to watch him flinch like a coward. I didn't hit him. I wanted to, but I didn't. You were in my house, I hissed, teeth clenched. In my fucking bed. With my wife. And you want to talk? I swear to God, it was a mistake. A stupid. No. Don't. Don't you dare try to soften this. He looked like he wanted to cry. You can't ruin everything, Mark. We've all got too much to lose. Me, Olivia, Chloe. And there it was. Her name. Chloe. Ryan's wife. Sweet, quiet, always put together Chloe. The woman who hosted our game nights. The woman who brought Olivia soup when she was sick. The woman who now, like me, probably had no clue what the fuck her life was anymore. I leaned in close. Have you told her? He went pale. Didn't think so. He looked down at his boots, shame written all over his face. She knows something's wrong, he said. But she doesn't know everything. Don't make this worse than it already is. I stepped back and shook my head slowly. Worse than you burying yourself inside my wife. That hit. His eyes shut tight. I turned and walked away. You have 5 minutes to get the hell off this property, Ryan. And don't ever come back here again. He left. I didn't watch him go. I didn't trust myself to. By the time I got home that evening, if I could still call it home, the sky was bruised with twilight. The front porch light was on, just like the night before. Just like the lie she'd made our marriage into. But I didn't go inside. I didn't even park in the driveway. Instead, I drove half a block down, just far enough to see the houses but not be seen. That's when I spotted her. Chloe, sitting alone on her porch in a faded hoodie, her long dark hair pulled into a messy knot. She had a glass of wine in one hand and her phone in the other, staring at it like it might break the silence sitting between her and whatever she was thinking. She didn't move, didn't look up, but I knew it then. She knew. And just like me, she was sitting in the ashes, waiting to see if anything was left to salvage. The forecast said clear skies, but by evening the clouds had rolled in heavy and low, like the world had decided I hadn't been punished enough. I sat in the truck outside my own dark house for what felt like an hour, watching the storm build. Olivia's car was in the driveway. I imagined her pacing inside, rehearsing apologies, or maybe packing a bag. I couldn't go in. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The first drops splattered against the windshield when I finally turned the key and drove the half block to Ryan and Chloe's place. Their porch light glowed through the curtain of rain. She was there again, wrapped in that same gray hoodie, knees drawn up, phone balanced on the armrest. A single lamp burned behind her, casting a pale oval of light that made her look almost translucent. I parked at the curb and hesitated. What was I doing? Showing up at the house of the woman whose husband had destroyed my life? I didn't have an answer, just an ache that needed company. When she noticed the headlights, she stiffened, then peered through the rain. Recognition softened her face for half a second before she looked away. I stepped out into the storm without an umbrella. The cold water hit like penance. By the time I reached the porch steps, my shirt clung to me and my boots squelched. Mark, she said quietly, as if saying my name might summon more ghosts. I'm sorry for showing up like this, I managed. I just couldn't sit over there anymore. She nodded, not inviting me in, but not sending me away either. You found out too, didn't you? The words came out steady, but her voice cracked on too. I sat down on the top step, a respectful distance away, rainwater dripping from my hair onto the wooden planks. Yesterday, I said, came home early from Houston. Her breath caught. So it's real then. No mistake. No misunderstanding. It's real. She pressed her palms against her face. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The rain filled the silence, 1,000 tiny impacts like static between two broken radios. Finally, she said, I found the messages months ago. Texts, photos, little pieces. But Ryan, he always had a reason. Said I was imagining things, that Olivia was just a friend who understood him. She laughed, bitter and exhausted. Turns out she understood him better than I ever did. I didn't see anything coming either, I said. I thought Olivia and I were fine. We had our routines, our plans. I was even looking at cabins up north for next spring. Thought we could use a getaway. Chloe turned toward me, eyes red-rimmed, but sharp. It's strange, isn't it? You spend years building something, brick by brick, and one night you find out half the walls were paper. The wind shifted, blowing rain sideways across the porch. She stood and grabbed a pack of cigarettes from the railing, offered me one. I shook my head. She lit hers with trembling hands, the orange flare illuminating her face for an instant. Wet hair stuck to her cheek, mascara smudged, beautiful in that raw, human way grief makes people beautiful. Do you want to tell me what happened? She asked. So I did. I told her about the sneakers by the door, the sounds upstairs, the look on Olivia's face when she saw me standing there. My voice stayed even until I got to Ryan's name. Then it wavered. I hated that she heard it. When I finished, she nodded slowly. He told me he was working late that night. Said he'd crashed at a coworker's place. I even made him breakfast the next morning. She exhaled smoke through her teeth. I think I knew then. Just didn't want it to be true. Lightning split the clouds, a flash so bright it turned the world white. The thunder followed close behind, shaking the boards under us. For a moment we both flinched, then laughed at ourselves. Small, tired laughter, but real. Guess we deserve the storm, I said. Guess so. The cigarette burned down to her fingers. She dropped it into the wet grass and watched the ember hiss out. What are you going to do, Mark? I don't know, I admitted. Every time I picture her, I feel angry, then empty, then angry again. I can't even decide which hurts worse. Same here. She wrapped her arms around herself. I keep thinking about all the dinners we had together, the four of us sitting around my table, joking about yard work and birthdays. It feels like someone spliced in a nightmare over our memories. Another gust sent cold rain across the porch. Without thinking, I took off my jacket and held it out. She hesitated, then pulled it around her shoulders. For the first time that night, she met my eyes without flinching. "Thank you," she whispered. We sat there while the storm raged, saying nothing. The rain came down harder, pounding on the roof, streaming off the edges in silver ribbons. Every once in a while, a car passed, headlights sweeping across two people who'd lost everything but the company of someone who understood. When the thunder moved farther away, Chloe reached into her pocket and pulled out a small silver lighter, Ryan's initials engraved on the side. She turned it over in her hand, studying it like a relic. Then, without ceremony, she tossed it into the yard. It disappeared in the grass with a dull thud. "Feel better?" I asked. "A little." She gave me a small, crooked smile. "You should probably get home before the roads flood." "Home," I repeated, the word tasting foreign. "Yeah, maybe." I stood, dripping, unsure how to end something that had no clear beginning. She touched my sleeve lightly. "If you ever need to talk, not about them, just talk. You know where I am." "I might take you up on that." As I walked back through the rain, I looked once over my shoulder. She was still on the porch, watching the sky, my jacket pulled tight around her. For the first time since everything fell apart, I didn't feel completely alone. I started seeing her everywhere. Not Olivia, Chloe. It began with those awkward run-ins you chalk up to coincidence. I passed her at the park 3 blocks from my place, jogging with a leash in hand and no dog at the end of it. I saw her again at the grocery store, standing in front of the same brand of wine Olivia and I used to drink, her fingers hovering over the bottle before pulling away like it burned her. Eventually, coincidence started feeling like choice. Maybe not intentional, but mutual. We didn't plan it. Not at first. But we kept showing up in the same quiet places at the same quiet times, like 2 storm survivors finding each other in the wreckage. It was subtle, unspoken. No declarations, no shared plans. Just the growing knowledge that someone else understood. One morning, I found myself at the gym at 6 a.m., not to work out, not really. I didn't have the energy for reps or cardio. I just needed to move, to breathe air that didn't smell like her shampoo, to stand somewhere my betrayal didn't echo off every wall. And there she was. Chloe was stretching near the free weights, hair pulled back, earbuds in. When she looked up and saw me, her lips twitched, halfway between a smile and something sadder. I gave her a nod and kept walking. But 20 minutes later, she passed by the water fountain, leaned in close, and said, "There's a diner 2 blocks over. Decent coffee. Better pancakes." I followed her out like I was on autopilot. We sat in a booth near the window, both of us still in gym clothes, our sweat cooling into silence. The waitress came over, and Chloe ordered black coffee and banana pancakes. I got the same, mostly out of instinct. "Thanks for the jacket," she said eventually, stirring her coffee with the tip of her spoon. "You can have it back if you want." "Keep it," I said. "It looks better on you." That earned the smallest smile. It's been years since someone said something like that to me and meant it. "Yeah," I said. "Same." For the first few minutes, we just talked about the food. The coffee was bitter, the pancakes were thick, and the syrup bottle was sticky with fingerprints. It felt normal. Safe. Like a shield against the emotional wreckage we were both still climbing out of. But eventually, the shield cracked. She told me how it started for them, Ryan and Olivia. "I think it was spring," she said, looking out the window as cars passed in the drizzle. "He started dressing nicer. Got a new cologne. And he was suddenly so helpful around the house, offering to do laundry, cook dinner. He hadn't cooked in 3 years. I thought he was changing." "He was," I said bitterly. She sighed. "Yeah, just not for me." I told her about Olivia's coldness, how she'd slowly withdrawn from everything that used to connect us. Little things that didn't mean much at the time. Her stopping movie nights, her phone always face down, her silence after sex. It wasn't the affair that broke me. It was realizing how long she'd been gone before I even noticed. Chloe nodded. "You know the worst part?" she said. "It's not just what they did. It's how easily they did it. Like it wasn't a decision, it was just natural for them. Like they didn't have to betray us. They just wanted to. I didn't have a reply. Only the slow simmer of agreement. Her hand brushed mine when she reached for the syrup. A fleeting touch, skin on skin, electric in its simplicity. I didn't move away. Neither did she. There was no intention in it. Not yet. Just contact. Shared warmth. Two people stranded in the same blizzard, discovering they weren't the only ones left standing in the snow. We left the diner an hour later. As we stood by her car, I found myself saying, "I'm free Thursday evening, if you ever feel like talking again." She hesitated, then nodded. Same diner. Sure. She got in her car, but before closing the door, she looked at me and said, "It's easier, being around you." I understood exactly what she meant. That Thursday, we didn't talk about Olivia or Ryan. We talked about music, childhood, our favorite movies. Chloe told me how she used to sing in college, a cappella of all things. I told her about how I once drove 400 miles just to surprise Olivia with tickets to her favorite band. She didn't even remember the lead singer's name, I said, laughing at the memory and hating that it still hurt. Chloe rolled her eyes. God, Ryan once bought me concert tickets to a band I'd never even heard of. He got the name mixed up with the neighbor's cat. We laughed, and this time, it wasn't bitter. We started meeting once or twice a week. Not dates. Not yet. Just two people who didn't want to sit alone with the weight of what had been done to them. We'd go to bookstores, parks, hardware stores, anywhere quiet, neutral. I started to look forward to those moments. The way she chewed on her straw when she was nervous. The way her eyes softened when she talked about her kids. The way our silences no longer felt heavy. One night, sitting outside a little cafe just as the sun dipped behind the trees, our hands brushed again. This time, we didn't move them. And something sparked. It wasn't love. Not yet. It was something more dangerous. It was possibility. It was supposed to be just another talk. That's what I told myself when I texted her. "You around tonight? I could use some air." She replied within minutes. "Yeah. You want to come over?" That was new. We'd always met in public, safe, open places that made it easier to pretend this wasn't something creeping toward a dangerous edge. But something had shifted between us. The accidental touches weren't accidental anymore. The silences between our sentences had grown longer, heavier. I told myself it was still about healing. So I said yes. Chloe opened the door wearing a faded hoodie, her hair pulled back loosely, eyes red like she hadn't been sleeping. She looked exhausted. Real. Beautiful in a way Olivia had stopped being the moment she started covering her lies with perfect makeup and fake smiles. "Come in," she said softly. Her house smelled like lavender and rain. A candle flickered on the coffee table. I noticed 2 wine glasses already half full. "I thought you might say yes," she admitted, offering one to me. "Sorry, I needed it." We sat on the couch, our legs angled toward each other. A local radio station played quietly in the background, the kind of soft indie music you'd never pay attention to until it hit you right in the chest. I sipped my wine. She did the same. For a while, neither of us said anything. Then she exhaled and leaned back, pulling her knees to her chest. "He sent flowers this morning." I blinked. "Ryan." "Yeah. White roses." "I hate white roses." "Olivia showed up at my house yesterday. Tried to leave a note in the mailbox. Didn't even have the courage to knock." We both stared ahead. "I'm tired of talking about them," Chloe said. "So let's not." She looked over at me. "What should we talk about then?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. Because I didn't want to talk. Not anymore. And judging by the way her eyes held mine, neither did she. It happened slowly, then all at once. I don't remember leaning in. I just remember the feel of her lips, soft, warm, hesitant. The kiss wasn't rushed. It didn't explode into some feverish collision like the movies always show. It was gentle, cautious. A question asked without words. When she pulled back, her breath caught. "Mark." I nodded, not pushing, not apologizing. "Just waiting." She whispered, "This doesn't fix anything." "I know." Her hand slid into mine. Her thumb brushed the edge of my palm, a slow, trembling line. Then she leaned in again. This kiss was different, hungrier. Years of loneliness melted under the heat of it. My hands found her waist. She moved closer, climbed into my lap like it was the most natural thing in the world, like we had always belonged in this collision of grief and desire. I didn't think about Olivia. I didn't think about Ryan. I thought about Chloe, her mouth on my neck, her fingers gripping the back of my shirt. The tiny, desperate sound she made when I traced the curve of her jaw. She pressed her forehead to mine. Are we really doing this? I didn't answer. She didn't need one. We didn't make it upstairs. The couch became our confessional. Slow at first, like two people trying to remember how to feel alive again. There was nothing calculated about it, nothing performative. Just skin, heat, breath, release. It wasn't about love. It was about need. And when we were done, tangled in a throw blanket and her hair spread across my chest, neither of us said a word for a long time. Eventually, she spoke. I didn't think I'd ever want someone again. Not like this. I didn't either. She shifted slightly, looking up at me. Do you think we're terrible people? I thought about it. No, I said. I think we were wrecked. And we're trying to crawl out of it. Do you think this was a mistake? No. I said again more firmly. It wasn't. Chloe's eyes shimmered in the candlelight. I don't want to be revenge, Mark. You're not, I said. You're the only thing that's felt real in weeks. Her head dropped back to my shoulder, and I let my fingers trail lightly along her arm. Outside, the wind had picked up, brushing the windows with soft rattles. Somewhere in the distance, a car drove by, headlights briefly cutting across the living room. I should have felt guilt, but I didn't. I felt calm, whole, for the first time since Olivia shattered me. Later, I pulled my shirt back on while Chloe wrapped herself in a blanket and watched me. There was no awkwardness, no regret in her expression, just the quiet understanding of someone who knew what it meant to come undone and still get up the next day. Will I see you tomorrow? She asked. I'll be here, I said. I kissed her again, this time slower, deeper. Not goodbye, just confirmation. And then I left into the night, the air colder than I expected, but my skin still warm from her touch. Driving home, I passed my house without stopping. I didn't want to see the porch where Olivia once kissed me before work, or the mailbox where her apology now waited unread. Instead, I drove past the place where we used to be happy and into the unknown, where the only thing I had left was the woman who kissed me like I mattered. It started with cheap motels. Off the highway, places with numbers for names. Route 7 Inn, Motel 56, Highland Lodge. Rooms that smelled faintly of bleach and desperation. We didn't care. It wasn't about comfort. It was about having a place that didn't remind us of them. The first time, we didn't even speak when I pulled the key from the front desk. We just walked side by side in the cold dusk, her hand brushing mine, the silence between us charged. The door shut behind us, and suddenly it was like we'd crossed some invisible threshold. No explanations. No need. She kissed me like she'd missed me for years. I kissed her like I had nothing else left. That room, brown carpet, yellow walls, floral bedspread, became a kind of church. We worshipped each other's scars. I memorized the small freckle beneath her collarbone. She traced the knot in my shoulder where stress had taken permanent residence. Her nails down my back, my hands in her hair. Every touch, every gasp, every whispered name. It was all defiance. It wasn't about love. Not yet. It was escape. It was control. It was the one place in our lives where we weren't the victims of someone else's betrayal. We were rewriting the story they started. We told ourselves it wouldn't become routine. Then it did. Tuesday nights. Sometimes Fridays. Once on a Saturday afternoon when the motel clerk raised an eyebrow but said nothing. We never stayed the night. Always left before dark or just after sunrise. Chloe had kids. I had a mailbox still stuffed with divorce paperwork I hadn't opened. Then one night, as we lay tangled in thin motel sheets, her fingers resting gently on my chest, she whispered, "This isn't just about them anymore, is it?" No, I said. And it wasn't. We were still running, but now we were running towards something. The motel stopped feeling like enough. Chloe brought it up first. There's a cabin by the highway. My cousin used to rent it out on weekends. It's kind of run down, but private. Private. That was the word we both needed. I called the number she gave me. Cash only. No paperwork. The owner didn't ask questions, just handed me the key and said, "Don't break anything I care about." The place was tucked back in a line of trees, surrounded by brittle pines and the occasional deer. Inside was a sagging couch, a wood stove, and a twin bed that looked like it had survived at least one fire. But to us, it was perfect. It became our refuge. We brought food, wine, music, a second-hand speaker I kept in the glove box. Chloe started leaving a sweater behind. I brought a spare shirt and a toothbrush. Over time, the place started to feel less like a hideout and more like a second life. We still talked about Ryan and Olivia, less and less. Their names faded into the background like static. When we undressed each other, we didn't do it to forget anymore. We did it to feel, to live. One night, I caught her staring at herself in the mirror across from the bed. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded, slowly. I used to hate mirrors. I couldn't look at myself for weeks after I found out. I didn't recognize the person staring back. And now, she turned to me. Her eyes were clearer than I'd ever seen them. Now I see someone who finally stopped waiting to be chosen. I moved behind her, wrapping my arms around her waist, resting my chin on her shoulder. In the reflection, we looked like two people clinging to each other at the edge of something dangerous. "I used to see a husband," I said. "A provider. A fixer. Someone who never let anyone down." I paused. "Now I just see a man who survived." She took my hand and brought it to her lips. That night, we didn't rush. We undressed each other slowly, like it meant something. We moved in sync, not out of urgency, but reverence. Every touch said, "You are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are here." When we collapsed into each other, breathless and half laughing, the silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was peace. We stayed there for hours afterward, wrapped in each other beneath a blanket too thin for October. The wind pressed against the windows. I watched the fire in the stove flicker until it died. Chloe slept first. I lay awake, listening to her steady breathing, and thought about the mess we'd both come from. About how, against all odds, something honest had grown out of it. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was reclamation. But as I closed my eyes, a single question took root in the quiet. What happens when they find out? You can only keep a secret for so long before it starts to sweat. I'd grown used to the cabin. Its quiet creaks, its uneven floorboards, the way the kettle never whistled until you stopped listening for it. Chloe and I had turned it into a strange kind of sanctuary. But what we were doing was still fragile, still hidden, and the world outside had begun to notice the cracks. Olivia was the first to sense it. She started showing up again, texting at odd hours, calling late at night with empty pretexts. I left something at the house. I thought maybe we could talk. You never replied to my letter. I ignored every message until the night she came to the door. She stood in the porch light, arms folded against the cold, wearing that same burgundy coat I bought her 2 Christmases ago. Her hair was pulled back like she was trying to look innocent, small. But there was a sharpness in her eyes, like she was trying to see through me. "I thought you'd be home earlier," she said. "I'm not your husband anymore, Olivia." She flinched at that, but recovered fast. "You haven't signed anything yet. And you haven't apologized." "Not really." A beat passed. Then she tried something different. Her voice softened. "Can we at least talk inside? It's cold." I hesitated. And that was enough of an opening for her to push past me and step inside like she still belonged. The house felt wrong with her in it. Like I was watching a memory try to wear the skin of the present. "I've been seeing someone," she said suddenly, her voice casual, even smug. "Okay. You don't care?" "I don't believe you," I said, shutting the door. "And no, I don't." Her mouth tightened. "I made a mistake, Mark. But we were broken before that. You know we were. I didn't know how to fix it." "You didn't fix it," I said. "You set it on fire and danced in the ashes." Her eyes flashed. "Don't act like you're so innocent. I've seen the way you've been looking at her." The way she said it, her, like she couldn't even say Chloe's name, told me everything I needed to know. She knew, or she suspected. "What are you talking about?" "Chloe, don't insult me." There it was. I didn't confirm it. I didn't have to. She saw enough in my silence. "That's your revenge, then?" she said, laughing bitterly. "You sleep with her, and suddenly you're healed." "No," I said. "That's not how this works." But the truth was, it wasn't revenge anymore. And that terrified her. She stormed out without another word. Later that night, Chloe texted me. "Ryan showed up. Flowers. Again. Said he wants to start over. He said he misses how things used to be." I almost laughed in his face. The next day, I found her sitting outside the cabin, wrapped in my flannel shirt and holding a mug of tea like it was armor. She didn't look at me when I sat beside her. "They're trying to get us back." "I know. I think they can feel it. That we're not theirs anymore." I nodded. It wasn't just Olivia. That week, Ryan started popping up more often. I saw him jogging by my place. He waved once. Another day he knocked on my front door, claiming he left something behind during game night, as if that night hadn't been burned into ash. When I ignored him, he left a note in my mailbox. You don't have to do this, Mark. We're neighbors. Friends. Don't make it ugly. Friends. The word made me laugh. At the cabin, Chloe and I started double-checking the blinds. We parked down the road and walked through the trees to avoid being seen. It was ridiculous. It was paranoid. But it wasn't enough. One night, after we'd collapsed into each other, raw, breathless, tangled in sweat and limbs, I looked over and saw her watching me in the mirror again. You okay? I asked. She nodded. I just keep waiting for it to break. It already broke, I said. That's why we're here. She rolled onto her side, hand trailing down my chest. Sometimes I think we're just the reflection. I frowned. Of what? Of them, she said quietly. Two people who betrayed the people they were supposed to love. That's not what this is. She looked at me, and I could see she wanted to believe me. We didn't betray anyone, I said. They broke us. We just found each other in the wreckage. She leaned in and kissed me, slow and soft. But even as her mouth pressed to mine, I could feel the tension in her body, like she was bracing for impact. The cracks were getting wider, and neither of us knew how long the mirror would hold. It was a careless mistake. Maybe it was the way we lingered too long outside the cabin one evening, lips still swollen from goodbye kisses. Maybe it was the clerk at the Sunrise Motel who finally connected the dots after too many Tuesday night check-ins under different names. Or maybe Olivia had been watching, waiting for confirmation of what she already knew. Whatever it was, the illusion shattered in the span of a single afternoon. It started with a phone call. I was stacking lumber behind the yard, sweat stinging my eyes when my phone buzzed 3 times in quick succession. Then once more. Then again. Unknown number. Voicemail. Then another call. I ignored them all, until my foreman found me an hour later, face pale, lips tight. There's someone at the front. Says she's your wife. My stomach dropped. Olivia hadn't shown up at my work since the early days of our marriage, back when she'd bring me lunch and kiss me under the stairwell. Now she stood at the entrance like a storm cloud, arms crossed, mascara already halfway down her face. You're really going to make me do this here? She hissed as I approached. Do what, Olivia? She slapped a photo against my chest. Us. Me and Chloe, outside the cabin. I had my arms around her waist. She was smiling up at me like I was the only man left in the world. The photo was slightly grainy, probably zoomed in from a distance, but clear enough. Undeniable. You lied to me, she said, voice cracking. You said you needed space. You said you weren't ready. I looked at the photo again. You had Ryan in our bed, I said calmly. I don't owe you anything anymore. That hit her. She stepped back like I'd struck her. You're disgusting, she said. No, I replied. I'm free. I turned and walked away before she could say anything else. That night, I went straight to the cabin. Chloe was already there, pacing, holding her phone to her chest like it was a grenade waiting to go off. She knows, she said before I even stepped inside. Ryan told her. And now he knows too. How? She walked over to the table and showed me her phone. Photos. Messages. A screenshot of my truck parked behind the cabin. He said we humiliated him, she said, eyes brimming with a fury I hadn't seen before. He said he's going to ruin me. That the kids will never forgive me. I pulled her into a hug, but she resisted at first. Her whole body was trembling. I told him he lost the right to be hurt the second he unzipped his pants in your wife's bedroom, she said. But that doesn't matter now, does it? Because to them, we're the villains. We were always going to be the villains in their story, I said. Even if we did nothing. Her breath caught. She finally melted into me. It didn't take long for it to spread. Within a week, Chloe's phone was flooded with texts from mutual friends. Invitations vanished. People stopped making eye contact at the grocery store. Someone posted a vague status online about homewreckers and double betrayals. We weren't tagged, but we didn't have to be. Even my brother called me. Mark, he said, hesitant. What's going on with Olivia? She said you were seeing Chloe Palmer? That can't be true, right? I didn't answer. Jesus, he muttered. You're really doing this. Doing what? I snapped. Finding something real in the middle of a lie. He didn't reply. By the weekend, Chloe's kids refused to stay at her place. They're angry, she told me, voice hollow. Ryan spun it like I left them for you. Like I abandoned them. You didn't. I know that. but it doesn't matter if they don't. That night, she came to the cabin in silence. We didn't speak. We didn't undress each other like usual. Instead, we sat on the floor by the fireplace, side by side, watching the flames. At one point, she leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "We should have been more careful." I thought about that, then shook my head. No, we should have been honest from the beginning. Honest with ourselves. That we were done waiting for something to change. That we were tired of pretending we weren't already broken. She closed her eyes. "I don't regret you," she said. "Even if this all burns down, I don't regret this." Me neither. We made love that night. Not frenzied or fast, but slow and steady, like we were trying to convince ourselves the rest of the world didn't matter. And in that moment, it didn't. But the fallout had just begun. The next morning, Olivia showed up again. Not at work. Not at the house. At the cabin. She barged in without knocking. Her voice like a gunshot. "So this is where you've been hiding." Chloe, wrapped in a blanket, froze on the couch. I stood between them before Olivia could step any further. "Get out," I said. "You brought her here?" Olivia spat. "To our place." "It's not ours." Ryan appeared seconds later. He must have followed her. He looked worse than I expected. Gaunt. Hollow-eyed. Rage boiling just beneath the surface. "You son of a bitch," he growled, stepping forward. "You think you can just take everything from me?" "I didn't take anything you didn't throw away," I said. He lunged. Chloe screamed. I caught him mid-swing, shoved him back against the doorframe. "Don't you dare," I said, breathing hard. "Don't you fucking dare bring your anger here. Not after what you did." "You ruined her," he spat, pointing at Chloe. "You turned her against me." "No," Chloe said quietly. "You did that all by yourself." For the first time, Ryan looked genuinely stunned. "You cheated," she said. "You lied. You made me feel invisible. And now you want me to pretend it never happened because you're ashamed." He opened his mouth, closed it. Then he turned and left. Olivia followed after him without a word. The cabin was quiet again. But we knew. Nothing would be the same after this. The cabin felt different after that. No more pretending. No more hiding. The lie had been peeled back, layer by layer, until the raw truth stood bare for everyone to see, and it was ugly. Exposed. We didn't go back for 3 days. Chloe texted me that Sunday morning. "I don't think the kids are coming back this week." Her daughter, Emma, wouldn't return her calls. Her son, Tyler, had posted something on social media, cryptic but pointed, about not knowing who someone is anymore. Meanwhile, my mailbox was a war zone. A thick envelope from Olivia's attorney sat wedged behind a pile of junk mail. The final draft. Divorce, custody of the house, which neither of us really wanted now, and a polite suggestion that we seek peaceful mediation. I set the envelope on the kitchen table and stared at it for hours. Across town, Chloe was drowning in whispers. Her best friend stopped returning texts. Another mom from Tyler's soccer team confronted her in the parking lot, accused her of blowing up a stable family. Ryan, ever the actor, had spun his version of the truth quickly, that Chloe had lost herself, that I had preyed on her in her most vulnerable moment. And because he got there first, people listened. We became the villains, the cheaters, the betrayers. Never mind what came before. The next time we saw each other was at the cabin. She walked in, dropped her coat on the floor, and sat on the edge of the bed like the weight of the week had finally broken her spine. "I feel like a ghost," she said. I sat next to her. "You're not." She turned toward me. "Do you think we made a mistake?" The question hung between us like smoke. "No," I said. "But I think we underestimated how much they try to keep us in the story they wrote." Chloe's eyes welled up. "I miss them. My kids. I keep thinking, what if I just stayed quiet? What if I kept pretending? Would you be happy?" No. We didn't cry that night. We were past tears. There's a point where heartbreak becomes bone deep, where all you can do is hold each other and hope it's enough to quiet the ache. I finally signed the papers that week. No ceremony. Just a pen, a trembling hand, and the cold click of finality. I scanned them into my email and sent them off without subject or body. Just silence. I moved out of the house a day later. Packed everything into 2 trips. She didn't show. Didn't text. Didn't even ask where I was going. And strangely, that hurt more than if she'd begged. I stayed at the cabin for a while. Chloe started coming again too, but less frequently. The world had crept in. Work. Kids. Damage control. We were still us. Still something. But the passion that had brought us together was now tangled with the consequences. One night, she came over just after midnight. No makeup, just sweatpants and that familiar gray hoodie. She didn't say hello, just curled up next to me and laid her head on my chest. Emma told me she hates me, she whispered, that I'm not who she thought I was. I didn't have an answer. I just held her tighter. The next morning, I made coffee and she sat by the window, staring out at the line of trees that hid us from the road. I'm scared, she said softly. What if this is all we get? What do you mean? This cabin, these nights, this in between. I sat down across from her, took her hand. I don't want to hide anymore, I said. Not from them, not from anyone. She looked up at me, eyes raw. Even if it means losing what's left. I already lost what was. I'd rather fight for what's real. She let that sit for a while. Then she said, okay, a simple word, but it felt like a promise. That afternoon, I updated my relationship status on social media. I didn't write anything dramatic, just a quiet shift from married to divorced. Within the hour, the messages started. A couple of friends offered support. One even said he'd known something was off with Olivia for a while. But most of it was judgment disguised as concern. Are you sure this is a good idea? It's so soon. What about the people you're hurting? As if they'd seen the nights I sat awake, questioning every moment. As if they'd watched Chloe hold herself together for her children, even while her world collapsed. People only ever see the fallout, never the earthquake. That night, I stood outside the cabin, cigarette in hand. I didn't smoke often, but the ritual helped. The pause, the burn, the exhale. Chloe came out and stood beside me, arms crossed. I told Tyler I was seeing someone, she said. How'd he take it? He didn't say anything, just walked upstairs and closed the door. He'll come around. Maybe. We stood in silence. The wind rustled the pines around us. I could feel the change coming, slow, creeping, but real. This couldn't stay like this forever. We'd either build something stronger from the rubble, or it would collapse under the weight of what we'd lost. I want to believe this is worth it, she said suddenly. It is. She looked at me. Then don't let me fall alone. I took her hand. I won't. I didn't expect to see Olivia again. But one Saturday morning, nearly a month after I signed the papers, I found her waiting on the front porch of the rental house I'd just moved into, coffee in hand, hair tied back, wearing that same cardigan she used to wear on lazy Sundays. She looked normal, like the version of her I remembered, not the one who betrayed me. I stepped out onto the porch, instantly alert. What are you doing here? I brought coffee, she said softly. Thought maybe we could talk. I didn't move. About what? She held out a paper cup. I don't know. Life. Us. Everything. I stared at it, took it, but didn't drink. She sat down on the porch step, like we were just neighbors chatting on a summer morning. I remained standing. I miss you, she said finally. Not just what we had. You. I let that hang for a beat. You had me, and you gave me away. I know, she whispered, and I regret it. Every day, I was selfish, scared, but I've been doing the work. Therapy, journaling, trying to figure out why I did what I did. I raised an eyebrow. And I was lonely, she said. And you were so steady, so solid. I started to feel invisible, like I was just someone orbiting your life instead of sharing it. I bit down the urge to argue, not because I agreed, but because I realized, finally, it didn't matter anymore. I needed something to wake me up, she said, tears forming now. And I chose the wrong way to find it. I know that. I looked at her for a long time, then said, why now? She met my eyes. Because I heard about you and Chloe, and I realized I might have lost you for real. There it was. Not guilt, not remorse. Fear. Fear that someone else had replaced her in the story. I'm not coming back, I said simply. I'm not asking you to, she lied. She stood, wiped at her cheek, and said, I just wanted you to know you mattered. You always did. Then she walked to her car and drove away. That same evening, Chloe called. Her voice was tight, unsteady. Ryan came by today, she said. He brought photos of the kids. Told me Emma cried last night. Said Tyler's been skipping school. I could already feel where this was going. He said he's willing to forgive me, she whispered. Wants to go to counseling. Try again. For the kids. I sat down hard on the edge of my bed. And what did you say? I didn't say anything. Silence stretched thin between us. Chloe, I'm tired, Mark, she said. Tired of being hated. Tired of wondering if I destroyed everything for something that might not survive. It was the first time she'd said it like that, doubt woven into every syllable. I didn't know how to respond. Not right away. Later that night, she showed up at the cabin without warning. We didn't touch. We didn't kiss. We just sat on opposite ends of the couch, two people on the edge of a cliff. I've been thinking, she said, about whether this is just trauma bonding. Whether we're together because of what we went through, not because of what we want. I swallowed hard. You think that's all this is? I don't know. That's the problem. I stood, walked to the window, looked out at the trees, the darkness, then turned to face her. I can't speak for what this started as. Maybe it was revenge. Maybe it was loneliness. But I know what it is now. What is it? It's real. It's me waking up in the morning and not hating myself. It's you walking into a room and the world finally making sense again. Her eyes shimmered. And maybe it's messy. Maybe it came out of something broken. But I've never been more sure of anything. She didn't speak, just stared at me like she was searching for something in my face. Some truth she could hold on to. I won't ask you to stay, I said. But I'm not going back. Not to that life. Not to pretending. She stood, took a shaky breath. I told Ryan no, she whispered. I exhaled, not realizing I'd been holding my breath. I told him I don't want a version of my old life with new pain on it. I want something honest, even if it hurts. I crossed the room, stood in front of her. You're scared, I said. So are you. We both laughed, quiet, tired laughter. She touched my chest, just above my heart. I choose you, Mark, she said. But I need you to choose yourself, too. I already did, I whispered. The day I walked out of that house and didn't look back. We held each other for a long time. Outside, the wind picked up. The trees swayed. But inside that cabin, everything was still. We sold the cabin in mid-October. I handed the key to the new owner on a cold morning while Chloe waited in the car, arms wrapped around herself like she was holding onto something invisible. The buyer was a retired mechanic named Glenn who wanted a place to fish and be alone. I didn't tell him what the cabin meant to us. Some places don't come with stories. They earn them. As we drove away, Chloe stared out the window. You okay? I asked. She nodded slowly. I think so. It's just strange. That place held us together for a while. It also held us back. She turned to look at me. Yeah. We didn't talk much on the drive. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was full of unspoken understanding. We'd survived the collapse, the scandal, the fire. Now came the part no one warned you about, the rebuilding. A few weeks later, we moved into a modest single-story home about 20 minutes from where we used to live. Far enough to feel like a fresh start. Close enough to pick up pieces if we wanted. It had a small porch, 2 bedrooms, a patchy backyard that looked like it hadn't seen a lawnmower in a decade. But it was ours. Every nail, every creaking board, every quiet corner. We painted the walls together. She chose a muted green for the kitchen. I picked a deep navy for the bedroom. On the second day, she got paint in her hair, and I kissed her before she could wash it out. By the end of the week, we were sleeping on a mattress on the floor, eating takeout off of paper plates, and laughing like people who had earned the right to laugh again. Not everything healed overnight. Her daughter still didn't speak to her. Tyler came around once, long enough to say he wasn't ready, but might be someday. Olivia sent a final email, short, clipped, informing me she was moving forward and asking me to stop contacting mutual friends. I hadn't reached out in weeks. I left the message unread. One morning, I stood by the kitchen window with my coffee and caught my reflection in the glass. For a second, I didn't recognize the man looking back. He looked older, not just in the lines on his face or the gray near his temples, but in the way he held himself. More still, more certain, like someone who'd been to war and come home, not with medals, but with truth. I used to see a man trying to be good enough for someone who'd already left. Now, I saw someone who'd chosen himself. Chloe walked in a moment later, wearing one of my old shirts and carrying a carton of eggs. What are you staring at? She asked. Myself, I said. I look different. She smiled. You look like you finally believe you deserve to be happy. I turned, pulled her into my arms, and whispered into her hair. That's because I do. That afternoon, we hung our first photo in the hallway, a picture taken at a local farmer's market. Chloe was holding a sunflower taller than her, and I had my arm around her waist, grinning like an idiot. There was no pretense in that smile. No performance. Just peace. We talked about the future more often now. Maybe a dog. Maybe weekend trips upstate. No rush. No pressure, just possibilities. And in the quiet hours, when we curled into each other at night, there was no longer guilt, no longer fear. Just two people who had seen the worst in others, in themselves, and chose not to run from it. We didn't need the cabin anymore. We didn't need revenge. We didn't even need forgiveness. We had each other. And that was enough.